Being playfully curious about everything that you do gets you far more satisfaction in life. I have understood a few things about law. One, yes, it's a governance mechanism, but what is it trying to govern? Humans. So as a lawyer, I want to be useful to those who take my services. It wasn't just the subject of law that I find rewarding, but it's the synergies that I have encountered. I look at it like choreographed dance. There are different steps, there are different people involved in it.
Before we move on to the next question, I just want to show this.
For this, can there ever be enough love? That's a question I usually ask when I make a batch of love cake. But very simply, it's love cake and it's for anyone to enjoy.
Welcome back to TechTalk360, and we are here in the new year 2025, and we have a very special guest with us today, none other than Anudi. Welcome to TechTalk360 and wishing you a very happy new year as well.
Thanks, Russell, and thanks for having me. Happy New Year to you and the crew. Excited to see where this year is going to take us.
So a small intro on Anudi. So Anudi is a legal consultant and also a tech and corporate working on those aspects, and a partnership builder as well, and also founder of EnoughLove.
Yeah.
Jumping on straight in, who is Anudi?
Okay. I don't think anyone's asked me that. So I'm either going to have an existential crisis right now. I think Anudi has always been a very curious adventurer. With anything I have done, I think I've followed passion and love as opposed to being strategic in me starting something and then having an end goal, because I genuinely believe in the journey. When I started to work as a lawyer and then also when I got into tech, what I realized was there is no such thing as a destination, because whether you are a lawyer or a baker or a student, things evolve and things change, and being playfully curious about everything that you do gets you far more satisfaction in life and in your profession than being so stringent about, I have to get here and I have to do this. So I have found that being curious and wanting to perpetually learn keeps you flexible enough to sort of mold yourself into unique and new situations, which I feel both the industries that I so lovingly embed myself in, which is tech and law, also do. It's very fluid. So I'd like to imagine myself as someone who goes with the flow and has a lot of passion about a lot of things.
Amazing. That's a really amazing intro to the episode. And I just jump in. How's your journey been so far, from a student to coming to the law aspect, and especially loving about tech as well?
I don't think I even started off wanting to be in tech law. Law for me as a law student was a very sensible thing to do, because my father was a lawyer and it just seemed like something that made sense. But I have understood a few things about law. One, yes, it's a governance mechanism, but what is it trying to govern? Humans and societies. And ultimately, what I like to do and what I've evolved to become is someone who can help humans create more sense in what they do by following what is a framework. And this took a few trials and errors, because if you've noticed my path, I don't stick to a singular organization or way of thinking for too long. This seems to have been an unpopular position with my mentors and a lot of those who have my best interest at heart. I've been told, why don't you stick to an organization for about at least 5 years? But as I mentioned earlier, I follow things that make sense to me and I follow it with passion. And it's interesting. Even in startups, we say try and fail fast. So that's something I apply to my professional career because I must become useful. So as a lawyer, I want to be useful to those who take my services. And even an organization, if it doesn't make sense that I cannot contribute the way that they require me to, and if what I'm doing doesn't make sense for me, I need to find something that does. So I have learned through the time period of being, now it's been a long time since I've been a student, but from a student to now, you don't stop learning and you really become who you want to be at the end of the day. For me, what I've learned is I love building connections and partnerships between the work I do and the people that I do it for.
Amazing. And I'll just ask you this. What's that interesting thing that you found in tech law?
So, law helps life make sense for human beings when they have to journey through their day-to-day life within a society. Tech makes life better for people as they go through life day to day. I don't see law as something that governs tech. I see law as something that assists technology evolve and become its greatest version of itself while making those innovators accountable and making technology accessible to the masses. Because it's not just equality that we need to look at, but it's also equity. So is there equitable access to technology? And law makes that possible. Maybe as we go through this discussion, I'll be able to share some examples of how they are so intricately connected. Really can't see a hard line separation between law and tech.
Definitely. And if I just ask you, how rewarding has law been for you so far?
Uh, Phenomenally rewarding. I never thought I'd be happy doing law. I just thought it'll be something I do. It's a job. It pays my bills. But I have worked with some incredible people. It wasn't just the subject of law that I find rewarding, but it's the synergies that I have encountered. I have worked in so many incredible organizations. I've worked with so many great thinkers. I've worked in government sector, private sector. I've worked in startups. I've worked for startups. And what I find rewarding is that my need to connect with people and to grow with them and build communities, even for a small time period, that is where the satisfaction comes from. I've managed to be part of some fantastic national projects when I was with the ICTA. I was extremely honored and privileged to be part of the team behind the National Fuel Pass. And watching a national campaign like that be run by an agency, a government arm, yes, but they were people at ICTA, and these were my colleagues who went across the country and helped solve a problem. And as a lawyer, if I'm not solving a problem, it doesn't make sense. And the reward for me was the satisfaction of watching us provide solutions.
Amazing. So, how do you navigate a team with interests of business and marketing teams in a corporate? What's your idea on that and your perspective?
As a lawyer, right?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so when you approach anything with an organization, I look at it like choreographed dance. There are different steps, there are different people involved in it. Ultimately, when you work for an organization, whether you're in marketing or corporate, the commercial teams or legal, you have organizational goals that you have to align with. So you try as a lawyer to firstly understand what are we trying to achieve. And then you apply your legal expertise to that and try your best not to remain rigid, because you can't ask an objective of an organization to fit into a legal frame that is rigid, but you try to navigate the law to apply to what you're trying to achieve. So my favorite parts of working with an organization has been where you get to be an educator of why you want a legal framework applied to the objective. And I've enjoyed having to work with the teams to build compliances that make sense for each team. And while accountability is then brought in by each team, their needs are also met, because support services in an organization are usually the guys who work in the background, right? But they're equally important. And it sometimes doesn't make sense that, we have to stick to this contract that we're signing and marketing can only do that. It's about being flexible and keeping the one goal in mind. So ultimately, like I made an example of it, if it's a choreographed dance, it's the person who visually enjoys it that should see that there are all these synergies that come together. In an organization, it's the same. So what am I doing when I provide my legal expertise? It is to help the organization achieve its goals while risk mitigating and ensuring that we can move forward with as little or no legal issues as possible.
Perfect. Before we move on to the next question, I just want to show this. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
And if I ask you, what is the story behind EnoughLove?
Oh, I can talk about it for a day and a half. EnoughLove is genuinely something that was born out of love. It's love cake. And it follows a traditional family recipe. So coming down from my grandmother to my mom. I, in fact, don't eat love cake myself. I never liked it. But my mother tasked me with making it for Christmas every year. So I was thinking, how can I move things around in the recipe to make it appeal to people like me? And then I, through experiment, came across a formula that a lot of people seem to like, Russell's. So EnoughLove was born, but nothing that we do is ever born when we work alone. So the logo was created by my husband, and the box design, I worked with many people. I create this as a gift that you give either to someone you love or to yourself, which is what love is. And I'm a very strong believer in empathy. I try and employ it with all the work that I do, including my legal work. But for this, can there ever be enough love? So that's a question I usually ask when I make a batch of love cake. But very simply, it's love cake and it's for anyone to enjoy.
That's like something that's really special that I heard this year. And it carries a lot of meaning, as you mentioned,
Yes.
and a story behind it. Perfect. We'll just dive in more deep on what we spoke about earlier.
Sure.
So, Anudi, how do you see the intersection of technology and law evolving in the next 5 years, especially in the Southeast Asian region and in Sri Lanka, of course?
Great question. Quite timely, also, I feel. So, I see the intersection between tech and law evolving very, very fast. And in particularly in the region, we're looking at a lot of aspects related to fintech, cross-border e-commerce, digital identities. So, in terms of where the necessity lies, I think even for Sri Lanka, these are areas that we would be, focusing a lot of tech regulation on. Um, we also shouldn't be looking at it in terms of law coming in to regulate technology, but law and tech moving together in order to provide the kind of legal backing and accountability provided to innovators. So, in the region, you can see countries like India and Singapore moving forward with regulations related to fintech sandboxes, AI regulations. So, those are great places for even Sri Lanka to consider. We have Sri Lanka's Personal Data Privacy Act already underway, and it coming into force in March 2025. So we have a very quick progress into it. I genuinely would consider legal practitioners to be stepping out of the traditional role um, and coming in as collaborators with tech innovators and to understand not only the technology background and industry and where it is right now, but also becoming collaborators who will look at the socio-economic implications with these fast-moving tech developments.
That's a perfect answer. And then if we move on to the data privacy aspects, so in terms of data privacy, how important is data for the businesses? And if I add on to that, how the businesses can use it very, respectfully, we say, or legally. I,
Yeah.
Recently, we finished off the elections, and you might have also come across this, text messages being shared all around. What's your thought on the general questions that I just asked?
Yeah. Um, Look, tech privacy now is not it's nice to have. It is integrated in everything. And consumers, the general public, clients are extremely aware that data is managed by service providers, by governments, and personal data. So, firstly, identifying the value behind personal data being used to provide a service or to provide products and goods is where businesses first have to understand that this is not just data. This is not just random bits of information, but there is a responsibility that comes with it. So, as I mentioned, it's not a nice to have, but a must have. And I think it's crucial that the businesses now look at it from the point of privacy by design, Russell, because we shouldn't place it separately, but as an integrated part of our business. It's also an asset for the company if you build the trust with your stakeholders on what happens with the personal data that you accumulate and you use. So if you build trust on the security aspect of your data, then that becomes an asset to your organization. And to come to the second part of your question about how businesses can be better prepared is I think they shouldn't look at this like it is a destination that you reach, but data privacy has to be very much integrated in the part of your journey. So from your employees to your policies to your day-to-day business thinking and goals, data privacy needs to be integrated, because and it shouldn't be looked at from the point of view of, oh, there are fines now attached to it and there are penalties and this is not good for business, but look at it from, why is it good for business?
Yeah. And if I just ask you, in terms of the legal frameworks that we have in Sri Lanka, how important are these for, especially if we talk about cybersecurity and the frameworks that are already there? How important is this for a nation, and when moving on to a digital transformation, how important is the legal frameworks?
I feel legal frameworks are the backbone of cybersecurity, and national cybersecurity for that matter. And technology alone can't support these systems, right? And increasingly, I find that for Sri Lanka, with us moving towards digitization, we become more and more vulnerable to cyber attacks. So the internationally also we see a trend towards harmonizing cybersecurity with legal frameworks. And I think Sri Lanka is really well poised to build these synchronicities and take it forward as an entire unit, and not as looking at a legal framework as a silo, cybersecurity as a silo, data privacy, but there has to be far more integrated synergies.
Amazing. So, Anudi, in your perspective, I think if don't talk about this topic, it's gonna be something really odd. Talking about AI and how AI is coming into the legal industry, what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think it's important to address it as well. First, if we look at it as coming in to the legal sector as maybe a challenge or as a support system, I don't see it as something that might take away the jobs of lawyers, but more as a tool you can really utilize. There's much about AI that is still being discovered and experimented with, but I have found a lot of lawyers utilizing AI to enhance their abilities by using it as a tool to review their contracts, to better manage their time in terms of cleaning up the work that they do, as opposed to AI generated work. This is a huge debate, which we unfortunately don't have the time to get into. But look, we can also look at how lawyers can take this on into their work, integrate it, and talk about the ethical uses of AI. We don't have to stand apart from this technology. We can stand alongside it and understand it and utilize it. Change is scary, but it doesn't need to oppose the future of an industry. It can go hand in hand, but again, what we discussed was what is the use of a legal framework if it doesn't help coordinate the move forward.
Amazing. And if I can link into that, talking about blockchain, I think it's upcoming and emerging as well.
Yes.
So, how actually we can use blockchain to gain traction and making it in Sri Lanka, what we say is it's not like legal yet, and the transactions.
Yes. So I think blockchain is disrupting a lot of industries and areas. And I look at it from how it can assist. So using these types of tech, say for example, managing the registration processes of property, how unique that could be, and there's a need for it, how it could help with creating digital contracts. But it also does pose questions for us: if digital contracts malfunction, who would be liable? And I think it's Estonia that utilizes blockchain technology in a lot of its e-governance systems. It has really integrated it in its e-government frameworks, and they believe in educating the general public more about it. And I think that's a interesting and positive way forward, even for Sri Lanka.
Perfect. And the last few segments of this podcast is mainly targeted to the youth, and they are the future of this country as well as they're the ones who are coming into the industry, and maybe they want to be like you as well, or young lawyers coming up as well. What do you actually have to tell to them when coming into this landscape, especially with tech as a partner or AI as a companion, to use it for being better? What do you say to the young professionals who are coming into this landscape?
Look, with anything, diving into it is important. But what I say is, if you're diving in, bring a snorkel, because you will need air at some point. So what I mean by that is, embrace it, but don't embrace it because someone tells you you should. Find a passion in knowing more and more about what you getting yourself involved in. And we can't deny this. This seems to be the future that we're moving towards. But in terms of what you do with it, what is your ultimate goal? Be it in tech, be it in law, be it in entirely AI gen. What is it that you're trying to achieve? If you're going to solve a problem, then great. Use the tools available to you. Become an innovator that helps. Don't become an innovator that disrupts for the sake of disrupting. You have to ultimately serve a purpose with the work that you do. And this is my personal belief, and this is my personal way forward. I look at, how do I leave even one person in a better position with the work that I contribute, utilizing technology and using my knowledge in law.
Amazing. And I'm just gonna ask you how you actually balance time, or any tips that you can give, especially when you're coming into play with enough love and baking and balancing with the legal side. How's a day to day can be for you?
I want to say something that a lawyer would never say, which is, I think you have to be a little insane to take on so many things in a day. But I think it's being pretty honest with yourself and understand what you're trying to achieve in a day. And it's okay to not do something that lacks inspiration. So I have a methodology with my clients. If I can't give them the best work on a contract today, I will tell them, can we push this deadline to tomorrow? If they can't, I say, okay, I will do what I can today, and I'm sure we need some review. Now, this is not on the hard line timelines that I have for contract work, but it's just go easy on yourself, okay? Because do things that make you feel proud and make you feel love for what you do. If it doesn't serve you, it ultimately will not serve anyone. So I do things that spring out of love and passion for me, including my work in tech, in law, in baking. Baking is something I love doing, but there are days I just don't, I feel it's not it. So the balance, we talk about the work-life balance. that's not a moment in time that you decide, oh, I haven't taken time for myself. But it has to be a day-to-day practice.
Sounds amazing. And we are going to step into something really fun.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Of course. I mean, let's
Okay.
see. Yes.
So, it's rapid fire time.
Okay.
Favorite tech gadget?
Oh, oh my goodness. Tech gadget. The phone?
Okay. One word that describes your work style.
Passion driven.
Empathy or objectivity?
Empathy. Oh, ooh, trick question. Empathy and objectivity kind of go hand in hand, but at any given point, I'll pick empathy.
I think we might have to skip this question, but I'll ask it. Your favorite your favorite legal case that you have worked on?
Okay, I can't mention details, but it was a land matter, actually, a land case, but it was for a company that makes liquor. And it was something that eventually, with the work that I did, we won that case. So
Oh, wow.
I don't know if I can publish
Yeah, no one. Yeah.
it.
Dream travel destination.
Oh, okay. So tough one. Dream travel destination moves every year for me, but Japan was it.
We have one who has visited almost. Most used app on the phone.
It's a bit boring, but
Facebook.
no, WhatsApp and TikTok.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One piece of advice that you live by.
We're all humans doing life for the first time. So go easy.
Biggest myth about legal consultants.
That they're boring. They're not. I'm not.
Your favorite part about baking cakes.
Watching people enjoy it. That is why I do it.
The first thing that you do every morning.
Gratitude.
A skill you wish that you had.
Oh, the ability to stay focused on one particular subject for a long period of time.
Favorite Sri Lankan dish.
Oh my goodness. I think pole sambal. I can just eat it. Yeah.
If you weren't in law, where would you be?
I'd be an actress.
I thought you would say you'd be in bakery.
No, I would be on stages acting and singing.
One thing that you would change the world using tech, what would it be?
I like that question. I would do what it takes to help people understand that they're not alone in whatever it is that they're going through. To identify that we are just human. And I have found TikTok, I'm just bringing an example, to have expanded that ability so much. Because I have such a love for people.
Since you like F1, I'm going to throw this question.
Okay.
Favorite F1 driver and why?
Lewis Hamilton all the way, number 44. Final race with Mercedes was last year, and now he's with Ferrari. He is beyond just a Formula One driver, and not just a Formula One driver. He has won 7 world titles. But he does so much for communities, for people, for the industry, for industries outside his expertise. He's just superhuman, and he's someone I look to for inspiration. He's not bad looking too, but he's just an incredible human who has meaning behind everything he does.
That was a really cool segment that we had. And moving on, if we can just tell something for the community, and there's a lot of young viewers out here watching, and they are, maybe if I just put it like this, I ask this question throughout our podcast. There are people, there are young talent planning to migrate to other countries that we cannot retrieve here in Sri Lanka. What do you tell to them? Maybe we can gather that talent here as well in terms of law, tech. What do you tell to them?
That's a very loaded question, but I also understand where it's coming from. I think what you do with your freedom of choice can help you identify who you are at the end of the day. My 15 years in law, I wanted to provide whatever I could for Sri Lanka. I stayed here, and you know what? I don't regret a single moment of it. I understand sometimes things can be challenging. There could be moments where you look at any industry here and think, you know what, it's riddled with problems and nobody's supporting us and things are hard. But maybe if you change perspective a little, you might be the reason the industry gets better. So don't lose faith in what you do out of love for your industry, for your profession, for your passion, and above all, for your country. Dive in and stay and put your brilliant mind and talent and skill into this country. And I'm sure we will see things evolve and progress far more.
That's a special message to the young talent out here. One last, finally. Is this your first podcast?
Yes, it is.
Let's talk about the experience and some final words on the podcast as well.
I think what you're doing, you and your team, is very important. I genuinely found this to be not based on what and who looks like out there, but this is on the actual substance of what needs to be discussed. So, congratulations to you and the team. I think we need to have more discussions about real things, because it's not about on what magazine you get on and what list you're on, but it's about what you will do and what you want to do. And you provide a platform for some very interesting people doing some incredible things to come and talk about it. So well done. I'm honored to have been here.
Thank you so much for coming today despite your busy schedule. And I wish to talk with you again on the podcast more every time.
I look forward to it.
And we can have certain topics as well. Let's just tune in
Yes,
for some more exciting episodes with you.
absolutely.
That's another podcast by TechTalk360, unveiling one bite at a time.